Welcome to the Relearning Leadership podcast. I'm your host, Pete Behrens. I've been thinking a lot lately about the compression of time, just how it squeezes us as individuals and as leaders. And nowhere is this pressure felt more visibly than in our global supply chain. As customers, we've come to expect next day, or more likely, same day delivery. But have you ever stopped to wonder what the engine is that makes that possible? In today's episode, I want to lift up the hood, peek inside that engine, to help shed some light on the toll it takes to keep it running. The supply chain is managing logistics not just from the website order to delivery at home. It's also managing the innovative design and manufacturing process, the regulatory and compliance behind it, the sourcing and supply of materials, and the warehousing and staging of those materials. It's a digital matrix, a technology marvel. High-definition monitors, automated movers, and AI systems predicting, tracking, analyzing every movement and every delay, all tuned to make that next delivery more efficient than the last one. Just how efficient? Only a decade ago, we were impressed with 2-day shipping. Then next day, today it's same day. But it doesn't stop there. The last time I visited India, I was the fortunate dinner guest of my colleague Rashmi Fernandez. She catered a beautiful home-cooked Indian meal where I got to experience not only a delicious dinner, but also dine with her family. Both the meal and her family were a gift. But okay, why am I sharing my visit to India? Well, little did I know, during dinner, or as dinner was being prepared, she was missing an ingredient she needed. But rather than run down to the market and go get it, she ordered it. And it arrived at her door in 10 minutes with no delay. Our dinner went off without a hook. This is a rapidly growing industry called quick commerce or Q-commerce, 10-minute delivery. Groceries, snacks, household items, ordered on your phone and delivered to your door in a blink. And as a dinner guest and my host, it helped create and shape a beautiful meal. However, as we discussed after dinner, it's also a problem. In fact, my visit to India that week was to work with a senior leadership team, one of our supply chain clients. I've spent the past few years working with senior leaders in supply chain all around the world. And for decades, they've been rewarded, they've been driven, I guess, for a specific kind of excellence, operational mastery. Leaders are trained and rewarded to optimize for speed and cost, reduce variance, drive efficiency, increase predictability. And technology has been there at every step of the way to help them achieve these goals. Billions of dollars have been spent on making supply chain faster and more intelligent. But here's the problem. Technology is advancing faster than leadership that manages it. And what many organizations are discovering is that the real bottleneck isn't the supply chain engine itself, it's the people responsible for operating it. Amid this technical symphony, you'll find people at every stage: planning, designing, moving, measuring, managing. Supply chains are ultimately built and managed by people. And so each part of the engine, as it gets its technological evolution, it's creating a digital divide, indeed a gap to the people required to run it. The World Economic Forum estimates approximately 10 million manufacturing positions are remaining unfilled globally, driven largely by the demand for digital skills that the current workforce has yet developed. That's not a recruiting problem, that's a leadership problem. Furthermore, each link of this chain, as it's dialed up to 10, is stretching the workforce to its breaking point. Negative impacts of worker safety and respect are well documented, from the warehouses of Amazon to the streets of Bangalore, where our courier rushed our missing dinner ingredient that night. It's not only, though, a problem for the factory floor workers and the delivery agents. It's the leaders under just as much or more pressure. They too are tired, exhausted, and feeling like the entire system is becoming a blur, too fast, too interconnected, too complex, too unpredictable. And customer demand, that's only one side of the equation. There's an equally challenging supply side. Geopolitical disruptions and wars, you're seeing tariff pivots, increasing climate events. These are all disrupting the supply side, as well as the global competitive landscape that has removed virtually every regional barrier to entry. Foreign factories from halfway around the world are now on the customer's doorstep. So, while our customer expectations are growing, the disruptions to meeting those expectations are also growing. And supply chain leaders, they're pinched between them. They no longer feel they're out front. They're behind and racing just to keep up. Now, one company saw this trend early, Schneider Electric. Their supply chain spans more than 160 factories and more than 80,000 people worldwide. A massive system. They too have and continue to invest heavily in digital capability, dashboards, robotics, AI, you name it. They too have become extremely good at driving performance, execution, speed, efficiency. And they too have been experiencing this gap between technology and their people. Schneider's Chief Supply Chain Officer, Murad Tahmoud, recognized this shift to leadership and what the leadership is that needs to meet this moment. In 2025, in a LinkedIn Pulse report, he said, and I quote, "In today's supply chain environment, effective leaders need to be more flexible, adaptable, and resilient." Notice the shift in language. He's not emphasizing costs and time or operational efficiency, although those are still critical. He's pointing to flexibility, adaptability, resiliency. Why? Because in a disruptive world, all plans fail. And top-down leadership is simply too bureaucratic and too slow. So in its place, innovation, collaboration, responsiveness rise to the surface. In fact, 3 years ago, Schneider Electric put up a mirror and realized that while its technology was futuristic, the leadership was still stuck in the past, operating in a command and control mode that worked well for a different time, when time wasn't so compressed, but now had become their bottleneck. Now, it's one thing to say this. It's another altogether to do something about it. And Schneider Electric put money on the table, invested in a multi-year Catalyst leadership program to prepare their leaders for this moment. Tahmoud said it well in that same Pulse report. He said, "Our Catalyst leadership program is in fact an ongoing cultural change rather than a series of training events." So what exactly is Catalyst leadership, and how is it helping address this gap? Well, to simplify complex human behaviors is risky, but perhaps let me try by sharing 3 fundamental shifts. Okay, shift number 1, from directing to developing. Most leaders direct and coordinate work. That's Management 101. Drive task performance, achieve organizational goals. In a more stable business, this is often enough. Yet in a dynamic, disruptive world, it's not. Catalyst leaders take this a step further. They don't presume stability, and they don't just worry or focus on today's performance goals. They're seeking to position the organization to address the inevitable disruption to those goals. This means investing in their own personal growth and the growth of the people around them. It shifts their priority and their focus. You'll find Catalyst leaders asking more questions than giving answers, coaching more than correcting. In a complex supply chain, this is enormously critical. The pace of change means leaders can't possibly stay on top of every domain. They depend on others to solve challenging problems together without direction from above. This means Catalyst leaders need to live at every layer of the organization. Okay, shift 2. From controlling to enabling. Traditional supply chain leadership has often relied on a clear hierarchy, tight delegation, controlling through structure, process, and oversight. That's how consistency and efficiency are often achieved. Again, in a predictable environment, this works. But as variability increases, control breaks down. Catalyst leaders gain more control by distributing it. They don't remove structure, they redefine it. Instead of controlling decisions, they create the conditions for better decisions to happen without them. This means setting clear intent, aligning priorities, and establishing guardrails, then trusting teams closest to the work to act. The speed of problem solving and decision making must match the speed of technology. Okay, shift 3. From reacting to resiliency. Leaders are often rewarded for saving the day, playing that hero role, stepping in when something breaks. Yet, this signals a lack of foresight. Catalyst leaders seek to shift their time perspective towards the horizon. This means building systems that surface issues sooner, which means creating environments where issues can be raised without hesitation. What does this need? This requires safety, not physical safety, psychological safety. Safety to contribute new ideas. Safety indeed to challenge authority when needed. In complex supply chains, disruptions are inevitable. Resiliency doesn't come from avoiding them, but from building an organizational muscle to respond, adapt, and improve them again and again. In a nutshell, Catalyst leadership is flexible, adaptable, and resilient, just as Tamud stated. Okay, nice theory, Pete. Show me the numbers. What's the impact here? Just as I was visiting India, a fire at one of our client supplier plants disrupted a critical component. At the same time, in the US, a port strike created a similar challenge. In both cases, Catalyst leadership showed through rapid cross-functional collaboration, creative contingency planning, and fast action to minimize business impact. All right, Pete, 2 good examples. But these are just 2 of more than 400 impacts Catalyst leadership had positively on the company that one of our clients experienced in just a single year. How do we know? We ask. Employees from around the world share examples of how Catalyst leadership is positively impacting their people, their plants, and their business. But unfortunately, Catalyst leadership is still rare. Bill Joyner's research, and confirmed by our in-the-field data, indicates that only about 10% of leaders operate predominantly in this Catalyst mindset. The rest remain behind, operating in a mindset that was more suitable for an older, slower, and perhaps more stable time. Schneider Electric, along with other clients we engage with, are seeking to change those metrics. In fact, in our next episode, we'll hear from Paul Stonehouse, one of the difference makers at Schneider Electric. He shares some incredibly candid and funny stories about the reality of changing or shaping a global culture. He shares some metaphors on ocean reefs and electric fences. You will want to listen. Okay, what can we take away from today's chat? First, complexity isn't your enemy. It's your environment. Stop trying to eliminate complexity. Start building an organization capable of navigating it. Second, success is equal parts technology and leadership. Investment in your people must match the investment you're putting into technology. And finally, a reminder that a transformation of this magnitude doesn't come from a single event or a single initiative. It requires an ongoing investment, something we call marginal gains, dozens of micro shifts, how we talk, how we measure, how we show up for our teams, all compounded over time. So the next time you order that same-day delivery, share some gratitude, not just for the technology that makes it possible, but for the people as well. And if you're feeling exhausted, overwhelmed by your high-performing engine, know this. There is a path forward, a journey to navigate this fog. Thank you for listening. I'm Pete Behrens. Relearning Leadership is the official podcast of the Agile Leadership Journey. To learn more, visit relearningleadership.show.
If you enjoyed this episode, it's drawing from one of the dozens of stories in Pete's debut book, Into the Fog, Leadership Stories from the Edge of Uncertainty, available in hardcover, paperback, ebook, and soon-to-be-released audio. Get your copy today from Amazon.